No, Rajesh, I'm not able to hear you. Hello. May I know who joined as Tech Teradata? Is it Rajesh? Is it Ram?
Yeah, it is from Tech Classes, Mr. Apart from RAM, we actually. Hello.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, hi. This is Chaitanya. I'm going to be a Teradata trainer.
Okay. Hi, hi Chetan. This is Ishwar from Tech Classes. One of my colleague will be coordinating this meeting and all. Like Rajesh, can you able to hear the trainer? But I think we are unable to hear his voice.
So, you're a professional working from past 9 years. I worked as a Teradata developer. I'm currently working as a Teradata DBA also. So I started my journey as a Teradata developer and worked as Teradata developer for 3.5 years. Of that, I worked as an application DBA, then into a DBA thing. Okay, so this is my profile snapshot. And coming to Teradata thing, so you might be already aware, like you are already working in the database warehouse environment. Okay, so you might be knowing like what is an OLTP and what is an OLTP, transactional systems and analytical systems. Okay, so what are the analytical systems we are currently having? They are most of the things. Most of them are using the Teradata. So what could be the reason behind using the Teradata for analytical systems? And what made them to choose Teradata rather than the traditional databases like Oracle or SQL Server? If you see, Oracle is a strong database in terms of the market share in terms of the earlier years. But now Teradata has come up as a strict competitor for them, especially in the OLAP environments. So why it is giving that much of stiff competition for them? So what is the speciality in Teradata that was not there in Oracle or SQL or any other database? Is the speciality of the Oracle itself is the concept of parallelism. Teradata is a database that is not supporting the parallelism like traditional databases, but it's a database that is built on the concept of parallelism. When I say parallelism with respect to Teradata, you might also be thinking like, okay, when I have gone through the definition of an Oracle system, it will say like Oracle is an RDBMS that supports parallelism, right? So Oracle is also saying that it's supporting parallelism. As I said, like Teradata is not a database that supports parallelism, but it is a database that's built on the concept of parallelism. So what is the difference between supporting parallelism and built on the concept of parallelism? That is the main difference we need to know. Supporting a parallelism is different from built on the concept of parallelism. Like, suppose you have triggered a job in Informatica. Let's say you have triggered the job with 6 sessions. Okay. You have triggered a job with 6 sessions in Informatica. In terms of the memory organization in Oracle, you'll be having a concept of data files where the data of a particular table, the records in the particular table are consuming this data files. If you create a table and if you start inserting the data into this table in Oracle, it will start consuming the data files. If one data file is filled up, then it will start consuming on the next data file, then the next data file, till everything is loaded into the table. So whenever you are loading the data into the table with 6 sessions, or whenever you are retrieving the data from this table with the same 6 sessions, all these sessions will work on a single data file. Okay, all these 6 sessions will work on a single data file till they read all the data from that data file. Once the data from that particular data file is done, then they move to the next one, then they move to the third data file. Like that, they will read all the data till the last data file. After that, again they will expand and they will give out the output to the user in terms of the 6 sessions. So whenever you are seeing here, the job is getting launched with 6 sessions in parallel. So launching in 6 sessions means replicating the same user ID for 6 sessions, and they have started working on the same data file. Okay, but whereas in case of an Oracle, in case of Teradata, whenever you launch a job with 6 sessions, in terms of Teradata, you'll be having some components called as virtual amps. These are the virtual amps which will store the data and which will do the backend work on the system. Okay, so the data will be distributed uniformly across these amps in the system, and each session will work on each of the amp, whereas it's not going to be the case like all 6 sessions working with a single amp. Okay, it might be a bit difficult to get you, but we'll go by a general example. Let's say you're traveling from Bangalore to Chennai. Okay, you're traveling from Bangalore to Chennai on the expressway road, which is a 6-laner. Okay, on this 6-laner, 6-laner means 6 vehicles can travel side by side. Okay, whenever you're traveling on this toll road from Bangalore to Chennai, you come across a toll plaza, and this toll plaza is having only one toll booth for all the 6 lanes. Okay, for all the 6 lanes it is having one toll booth, so all the vehicles need to pay the toll tax there near that single toll booth, and they need to cross the toll booth, then they can continue with their journey. So whenever you have started your journey from Bangalore to Hyderabad, sorry, Bangalore to Chennai on this expressway, so whenever you came across this toll booth, toll plaza, you need all the vehicles in their respective lanes on 6 lanes need to merge into a single lane. They need to pay the toll tax. Again, after crossing this toll gate, again they will expand into their respective lanes and they will continue the journey. This is scenario number 1. In a second kind of scenario where you have started the journey on the same toll road, okay, from Bangalore to Chennai on the same 6-way corridor. Okay, you have come across a toll gate, toll plaza, where you are having a dedicated toll booth for each of the lane. Okay, you have a respective toll plaza, toll booth for each of the lane. So you have encountered the toll plaza, you have paid the toll booth, toll fee in the respective toll booth in your lane, and you have crossed the toll booth and you have continued your journey in the same lane till you reach Chennai. So which one is the better scenario in this 2 cases? Which one you will feel like this is the better scenario? Is it going to be first one or yeah, second one? So why it is going to be the second one? Because you don't see any concession. You have started your journey in your respective lane, whatever the speed lane that was allocated as per your speed. You have crossed, you have paid the toll tax in the respective lane, then you have crossed your toll booth, and then you have headed towards Chennai. Whereas in case of the first one, you have launched, all six vehicles are traveling in their respective lanes. Means that you have launched your job with six sessions in parallel. Whereas coming to the middle, like in case of the toll booth, you are merging into a single lane. It means like the job which you have triggered in parallel is getting merged into a serialized fashion in terms of accessing a single data file. If it is a truly parallel system, each of the sessions should have accessed a respective data file. Each of the session will be working on each of the data file in the system. But rather than that, all of them are working on a single data file. Once it is done, then to the next. Like that, they are going out, right? Similar is the case with our toll gate example. All the six vehicles are merging into a single lane and they're paying the toll tax and then they're crossing the toll booth. Okay? And then they are again expanding into their respective lanes. So here what's happening in terms of traditional databases, which they are calling it as supporting parallelism, they are launching in parallel, they are exiting in parallel, but in the middle they are getting converted into a serialized fashion. Okay, whereas in case of the other example where you are launching the data job in parallel, you are crossing your toll gate, means you are working in parallel, means a dedicated session is working on each of the amp in the system in terms of retrieving the data. Okay, so you are starting your journey in parallel, you are crossing the toll plaza in parallel, we are not nowhere getting merged into a single lane, and you are heading towards Chennai after crossing the toll plaza in parallel. So it's nowhere getting merged into a serialized fashion. Either it can be in terms of insertion or it can be in terms of the retrieval. Okay, so that is the difference between scenario one is the case like supporting the parallelism. Scenario two is the case of built on the concept of parallelism. Okay, so that is the main difference. So in terms of Teradata system, the job will nowhere getting merged into a serialized fashion. So whenever you trigger your job with n number of session, each of the session will work on a virtual component called virtual amp in Teradata system, which will do the physical work in Teradata system, and it will work only on the space that was assigned for it. Okay, so this kind of kind of parallelism is there in Teradata architecture itself. That is the main reason why everyone is now using the Teradata system. Okay, and it's also going to be a highly available system. There is no kind of for failures. If there is a failure, also even in case of failure, also you have a high level of protection at system level as well as at the data level in Teradata system. Okay. So any questions till this point, Rajesh? Rajesh, do you have any questions till this point? Okay. So in terms of the Teradata system itself, the main thing is, yeah, the main thing we need to concentrate more is on the Teradata architecture itself. As I said, like it's a parallel processing system, right? So we have a number of components in Teradata system which we need to know. We have different components like parsing engine, AMP in Teradata system, and Binet, which will call it as message parsing layer. So the main theme itself lies in Teradata architecture itself. So we need to have a grip of Teradata architecture more in detail whenever we are looking into Teradata. So in terms of not only in terms of the architecture, we need to know the loading strategies also. Whenever we speak about the loading strategies in our warehousing environment, It will be like how we need to load the table. Is it going to be a truncate load, or it is going to be a incremental load, right? So depending on the loading strategies we have in Teradata, in our warehousing system, we have respective utilities in Teradata system, where we have n number of loading utilities like fast load, multi load, T-pump, and BTIC. Okay, so depending on our loading strategy and depending on the speed you are expecting and depending on the table availability, we'll be choosing the respective utilities. Okay, now all these utilities are merged into a single utility called as Teradata Parallel Transporter. It doesn't mean like these two tools are decommissioned. Okay, these tools are integrated into a single scripting language, which are all supported under one roof called as Teradata Parallel Transporter, where these utilities are converted into operators. Okay, so depending on the loading strategy which we are following for loading a table in Teradata system in the warehouse, we'll be choosing the respective utility. Is it going to be a staging table, or is it going to be a target table or intermediate table? The way you are having the loading strategy, that is the way you will be choosing the loading utility. It depends on the way you are giving the preference to the data, or it will depend on the way you are giving the preference to the table. So it depends also on not only on the volume of the data, it will also depend on the concern of the table availability during the data loading phase. If your concern is only with loading the data, not with the table availability to the users, then you'll be choosing any of the bulk loading utilities. If your concern is not about the data, and if your concern is about the table availability, even if I'm loading the table in the system, I need to have my table to be continuously available to the users. In that case, I'll be using some stream operators in Teradata system. Okay, so depending on the loading strategy, we'll have respective utilities which we need to decide depending on the loading strategy and the table availability concerns along with the data volume. So for each of the things, we have a respective coding style in earlier versions, whereas now all of them are, as I said, like all of them are integrated into TPT. All of them are going to have a single kind of functioning, single kind of scripting style. But whereas the protocols which they will follow is tend to be like the earlier cases of fast load, mload. They will follow the same protocol, but all together will have a single kind of scripting style. Okay, so we'll discuss more in detail in the coming sessions with respect to the utilities, how to code them, how to analyze the logs with respect to their loading pattern, and what are the phases and how to troubleshoot them. So we'll be seeing them in detail. So if it is a fast load or whatever the load operator you are calling it, okay, whatever the loading operator in the parallel transporter, how to troubleshoot it, how to analyze the binary log of it, how to find out the issue, and what are the protocols involved in it. Depending on the protocol and in what phase it has failed, depending on that only we can able to restart the job from the failed point, or you can also decide whether I need to restart it or resubmit it from the scratch. So it depends on the phase, it depends on the error message. So how to analyze it, whether to go for a resubmission of the job or restarting of the job. Okay, all these things we need to look at depending on the log it has generated. Okay, so any questions till this point, Rajesh? Okay, so as I said, like during the architecture itself, the data will be distributed across all the AMs in the system. As I said, like each of the session is going to work on each of the AMP in the system, right? And I have also mentioned one more thing, like the data will be uniformly distributed across all these AMPs in the system with respect to a condition of depending on uniqueness of the data. Okay, so if I say like it is going to distribute the data across the AMPs in the system means, so how it is going to distribute? Okay, so what is the pattern behind like the distribution of the data across these AMPs in the system? Is it going in a random manner, or how it is going to be decided? Means there is a concept called row hashing algorithm that will drive this data distribution process. If I'm saying an algorithm will be useful like if I'm having certain input, it will result in certain output, right? 5 minutes. Hey, 1 second. Let me. So if I'm saying like row hashing algorithm, it will have an input of the primary index column. Okay. So there is a concept called primary index in Teradata, which will drive this process of the distribution of the data across the AMPs with respect to a table. Okay. So you might be heard of a thing called primary key in regular RDBMS, right? So what is this primary index? So who is going to decide this primary index? And how this particular primary index is going to be converted into in it's going to convert into an address where the record is going to be stored. All these things we need to know. So how this particular process of mapping the primary index to the respective AMP in the system is the crucial thing in terms of storing the data or in terms of retrieving the data. Okay. So this primary index is the crucial part of Teradata system, which will insert the records into an AMP in terms of deciding them that this particular record should go to this particular AMP. Okay. So it's not going to be a randomized fashion of distribution of the data across the AMPs, but it's driven by this process of row hashing algorithm with the help of primary index. So the better the column you are selecting as a primary index in terms of the uniqueness of the data in it, the more is the distribution pattern of this particular table in terms of these virtual components. Okay. So this is the thing you need to know more about. So we'll be discussing all these things in terms of Teradata architecture as well as the utilities. And in terms of the table kinds also, we'll have n number of tables available in Teradata system. Depending on the table kind, it will maintain the uniqueness of the data. Whether you want to maintain the duplicates in the table, like in case of maintaining entirely duplicated records, or you want to silently skip off the duplicates in the table. So depending on the table type, it will maintain the data in the table. So we'll discuss all these things with respect to Teradata in coming up sessions, and also the regular kind of indexes which will be using like primary index, secondary index, what kind of indexes you need to choose and what way they are going to use. Okay. And we have something called as an explain plan in Teradata system, which will analyze you like whatever with the query you are firing on the system, right? Whether it is going to impact the system or it is going to retrieve the data in a fastest manner. All these things can be observed before execution by means of this explain plan. So how to analyze this explain plan? How to read whether my query is going to impact or it's going to run smoother on the system based on this explain plan? How can I analyze it? So in terms of analyzing the explain plan, we can see like we can analyze whether the query is going to impact it or not. Okay. This is how we will be analyzing the explain plan, and things could be identified before without executing the query. Okay. So these are the things we will be discussing as part of our sessions. If you have any questions, let me know. Rajesh, any questions? So that's it from my side as part of the demo. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we can drop off from the bridge. You can speak to Ram or anyone regarding the timings, anything, if it is okay for you to continue. Okay. And one more thing is, like, it's not going to be a theoretical session. For the initial part of the architecture, we'll be discussing it in theoretical, because and what are the things that we can see in practical, like checking of the data, how it is going to be maintained, like whether you are going to maintain unique data in the tables, or whether you are handling the null values or entirely duplicated records. All these things we'll be seeing in practical. And depending on this particular concept, whatever the practical things and whatever the issues you will be facing, we'll replicate it and we'll see them in detail. Okay. In terms of scripts also, I'll help you out in terms of writing your own scripts, like how to write it, what are the blocks you need to concentrate, and how to analyze the logs. I'll show you the logs, I'll show you the troubleshooting manner, how you will be doing it, and it will be the same replication like in real time. Okay. So you can have the feel of it, and we will try to replicate all the things you will be facing in your local environment. Okay. We'll be generating the flat files, like you will be receiving it from your source systems. We'll be loading them into your table, staging table, or we'll be loading them into a incremental basis. Okay. All these things we'll be seeing in practical manner. All the indexes, how to choose the index, what are the conditions or what are the points you need to consider in terms of choosing the indexes. All these things we'll be discussing, as along with the data security mechanisms. As I told you, right, there are some data security mechanisms available. Why Teradata system is called as a highly available system, how the system is going to help you out in retrieving the data even in case of a hardware issue. All these things we'll be discussing in the sessions. Okay. If you don't have any questions, we'll wind up. As you have opted only for the developer, we'll be looking only in terms of the developer perspective. If you want an admin, I'll go in admin. If you want both, I can tell you the both. Okay, it's with you. But a cross or mixed kind of situation, it's not there. I'll tell you like what are the locking mechanisms and what are the system tables involved in it as per the regular mandate. Okay, in terms of creating the table, why you are giving this option, all these things with respect to a developer perspective, I'll tell you. But in terms of creating a database, all this stuff like development admin stuff, like creating users, creating databases, perm space, spool space, all these things, how to move the space, all these things, I'm not going to cover it because it's a admin stuff. Clear? Okay. So if you have no further questions, we can log off. You can discuss with Ram or with your vendor. Any further questions? Rajesh, do you have any further questions? Okay, thanks a lot. Have a nice day. Bye.